debt, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live. This is why we need independent media.
Cheers and salutations, everyone. Welcome to Hardlens Media. I'm your host, Kit Cabello. We are live every Monday to Friday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch. Give a huge shout out to our moderators keeping the peace. Give a huge shout out to our tech presidency or phase manning the board. And also, give it up for the wonderful, incredible Lauren, who is now back in the house. Lauren!
Back in the house, back in the country.
There we go. So if you want to know where Lauren was at and all of her fantastic adventures, she was in Hispania. And join us on the Patreon show, because that's what we'll be talking about on the Patreon show. So join us. And also tonight at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time will be Chicago Corner. So if you're not subscribed to Chicago Corner, please do so. Folks, look, we got a lot of stuff that we're working on the sides here for Hardlens Media and the studio. So stuff I can't talk about. But if you want to know some inside details, consider being a patron supporter. And speaking of being a patron supporter, we got the whole new list up, so I want to pull up all these wonderful names that are keeping Hardlens Media alive. Let's get that list ready. Phase. We got Shalinsky, Mission to Mars, Reza Alma. We got Hans Jerditz Dietrich. We got Lizzie Girl Mom. We got Independent Left News, good friend of the show, Alfonso Nesbitt Jr., Jennifer. We got Stephanie. We got Sylvia Zito. We got that one dude, Nancy Ventura. A better Nancy than our current Nancy Pelosi. We got Nate. We got James Stawowi. We got good friend of the show, Whitefeld DM, the Whitefeld DM. I hope you're doing well, my friend. We got Jeffrey Solange. We got Devin Boyer. We got Linda Corey. We got Miguel H. Miguel H, by the way, you still owe your homework assignment of making the jigsaw map of Chicago's district. We also got Cinnabar Tab. And we got Hugo Gutierrez. Thank you so much, patron supporters. And by the way, if I do say your name wrong, you can send a private message to me and say, hey, jag off, you're saying my name wrong, because patrons, you're making it happen. Oh, by the way, I just forgot that you're doing that. I forgot that she's going to do that. She's back now, and now she's writing down how many times I say jag off. Don't watch the Jimmy Dore show, because he's going to be saying it a lot. No. Watch the Jimmy Dore show. It's the best. But he's going to be saying the word jag off a lot, so there you go.
Oh my gosh, you're going to kill me, man. These are going to correlate to shots later, so
I have to be careful. So there we go. I have to be extremely careful. So with that being said, Lauren, we're so glad to have you back.
I am glad to be back.
And I think we're ready to rock and roll. So I think we're ready to have ourselves a good show. Again, Chicago Corner will be live tonight, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you want to help out Hardlens Media even further, please consider being a patron supporter. It will keep us alive. There's a lot of stuff that we need to do here at the studio, and you guys and gals are making it happen. So with that being said, let's get started with our first segment of the day. So, Lauren, there's a lot of things that can be said about our elected officials.
Yes, there are a lot of things that can be said about them. How many of them are good?
None, really. Even your most favorite politician, none of them are good. And sadly, we are in this world of unchecked corruption. We are in this world of politicians, again, getting away with basically murder at this point. And I say this because Nancy Pelosi and Nancy, Ice Cream Nancy, and the Democrats continue to do stock trading and make money. They're earning huge amount of profits. There was this big hype a while back where there was talk about stopping all this insider trading.
I remember that.
And we did play this video again a while back where we showed a few people giving analysis on the stocks that Democrats and Republicans were investing in before the conflict in Ukraine. They were investing in it before it even started. They were buying up stocks in all the wonderful military-industrial complex facilities and the industrial people who like to profit off of war. So, what does this mean? Well, we have a video from Case Study QB. Be sure to check him out on Twitter. Unfortunately, you have to log in because Twitter is heavily suppressing his channel because they're saying he's uploading controversial content, saying that you have to be 18 years old to log in and check it out. Now, he's not posting anything adult-oriented, just posting clips of news, CNN, Fox, ABC. But Twitter is saying this is you have to be 18 years old to watch this. Thank you, Twitter, for confirming to us that corporate media is BS. But this is one time where they're kind of, sort of, maybe on the mark. If we can, let's play this first video.
Tonight, the fleecing of America. Congress has done nothing about banning or limiting stock trading for members of Congress, despite widespread support for it. Insider reporting 63 members of Congress have violated the Stock Act that is supposed to stop insider trading and conflicts of interest. With us tonight, Dave Blumenthal, Deputy Washington Bureau Chief for Insider. His extensive reporting on the huge investments and massive conflicts of interest from our own members of Congress is part of what sparked these calls. Let's start right there. You've got all these members of Congress violating the Stock Act, but here's the thing. It's a slap on the wrist. So even if they get in trouble, it's nothing big. Why are they even being investigated? Who cares?
Well, it's sort of like if you parked your car in front of your house and there was a no parking sign, but the cost of doing business was $1 parking ticket. That's effectively what it's like for Congress in a way, because if you do violate this act and it's not absolutely egregious, the fine you're going to pay out of the gate is going to be about $200. Okay, and Stephanie, we're talking about trade
right here. $200. I see you wish to react to that.
That's nothing.
To them, that stops them from buying an ivory back scratcher. How dare you? Congress needs their ivory back scratcher.
Like, I thought it was going to be like maybe prohibitive to like me, but no, I could afford that.
Lauren, I have to stop you there. So here's the thing, folks. If
I
you were to do what Congress is doing,
I'd be in a lot of trouble.
They are going to throw you in jail, and they're going to make sure that people
Stewart.
will never, ever know about you. Yeah, Martha Stewart
went to federal prison for insider trading.
I know. Martha Stewart served hard time. I was worried for Snoop Dogg when he was cooking with her, because, you never know what's going to cause her to snap.
Right? It's my paprika.
So yeah, Martha Stewart served more time behind bars than these Congress officials ever will. So, and by the way, if you think Martha Stewart served time, folks, if you were to do even a fraction of what Democratic and Republican lawmakers are doing in the U.S. Senate and House, know this, we'll probably never, ever see you again. So there we go. Let's pull up the rest of the video if we can, Face.
It's here that sometimes are going to be months, even years late. They amount into the hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars. And there's very little incentive for Congress to effectively abide by a law that it passed for itself to defend against conflicts of interest and, at worst, insider trading.
I love that analogy. If the fine to park in front of my house was $1, I'd park in front of there every day, tomorrow, yesterday, and for the rest of my life. What happened to this bipartisan movement in Congress to ban stock trading? Remember, months ago, we heard from Republicans, this is terrible. We're going to change this when we're in power. We saw Democrats.
Pause it here. Here's what happened. You know what it was? We're going to say these things, and hopefully the American people will be stupid enough to forget, and then no one will notice. It's called lying. Yes, there was a lot of talk from these Republican lawmakers, but we said it here on the show that we knew it was BS. Of course these Republicans were going to say things to make themselves stand out. But look, the Democrats do it too, folks, all the time. These politicians lie. What do I say in the show? Democratic and Republican lawmakers don't like you, they don't think about you, and they don't respect you. They're worse than Amber Heard, okay? And these are the people that dictate policy decisions over our lives. They don't care about us. Get that through your heads, everyone. Especially pull people aside who are diehard Democratic or Republican voters. They need to get over that fact. They're voting for politicians that will never follow the rules of this country. Trust me on it.
No, they absolutely want to, like we've said before, it's so easy to say something. It's so easy to say it. Like, oh, of course, we're going to step up and make sure this never happens again. Okay, they're not looking at us anymore. Okay, $1 million? Okay, all right. Like, it's so easy to say it.
What it is hold on.
I mean, that was...
You're going to be a Democrat, I'm going to be a Republican.
Okay.
How dare the Democrats do all this lying and everything else, and we're going to make sure we stop insider trading. Hey, you got Billy's number?
I do, absolutely. Okay. I don't like this person. It's
okay, great, thanks. Those suckers think that we work for them. Anyways, let's play the rest of the video.
Putting together proposals. Nancy Pelosi was under a huge amount of pressure. What happened? It's all gone.
There's a ton of heat and a ton of energy. Really at the beginning of this year, we had reported back in December a whole variety of conflicts of interest and, of course, the violations that you had just cited. And that created a lot of movement really towards something that was not only going to be driven by Democrats, but also ended up being legitimately bipartisan. There are several bills that are pending in Congress. And right now what's happening is there are negotiations taking place, really on the Senate side more than the House side. And you have certain members of Congress, including Jeff Merkley, a senator from Oregon, Democrat, Abigail Spanberger, who you just showed on the screen. They're really trying to get a consensus bill that will come to the floor. But hey, we've got COVID, we've got guns, we've got the economy writ large, many other issues that
excuse
have
after
simply
excuse.
dominated the discourse in Congress. And like a lot of things, you might have Congress focus on something for a hot minute, and then it goes away. That doesn't mean that this is dead, Stephanie. What it does mean, though, is that it's going to be difficult going forward for Democrats and Republicans ultimately to get together to support a single bill and get it done during this legislative session, during an election year, of course.
What motivated and infuriated many, many American voters to get out and vote in the last presidential election for Joe Biden is that they were voting against Donald Trump. They were furious over the self-dealing, the self-enriching, all of the things he was doing that was technically legal, or his administration, but it was wildly inappropriate and there was loads of conflicts of interest. So where is Joe Biden right now on congressional stock trading? He has been in office.
Pause it right here. So where's Joe Biden? Well, Joe Biden doesn't know where he's at. And as for that whole thing about getting people to go out to vote and vote Democrat to stop Trump, look, I didn't want Trump to be president in 2016. I didn't want to see him get reelected. But let's face it, the system made Trump. So you want to know what the Democratic Party did to get people to go out there? They did all the fear stuff. And then when it came down for any accountability, you heard this in the background as soon as you voted for Biden. Suckers. There, vote blue. That's what happened to you guys. That's what happened. You were caught. They played you. They played you like fools. See, I told you we're going to have fun on today's show. We got Lauren back here and everything else.
We got rock comedy.
There we go. Let's play the rest of the video.
For 2 years. This is a glaring example of something he can weigh in on and fix, and he hasn't. Why not?
Well, Joe Biden is missing in action, and that's not my opinion. That's the opinion of many progressives who sent him a letter last week and demanded that he, in a very public fashion, despite everything else going on, and he is a very busy president at this point for sure, but they demanded that he go out and publicly support a ban on members of Congress buying and selling, trading individual stocks. Joe Biden received that letter. The White House confirmed it. Joe Biden has not talked publicly about this issue. So if he is anywhere right now, it is not out front. And there's no indication, Stephanie, that he's really leading on this issue. When we had asked him about this previously, effectively, then Jen Psaki, his press secretary, said this is up to Congress. And Joe Biden really hasn't moved forward from that position since.
And hasn't talked about it at all.
He hasn't talked about it at all publicly. Now, this was something when the Stock Act, which was a bill that was passed about a decade ago, that was on point and really set in the current rules and regulations, the rules of the road, if you will, for the way that members of Congress interact with their own personal finances. Joe Biden was at that ceremony. So this is something that he definitely has talked about in the past. This is something that he has dealt with in previous political lifetimes, including when he was vice president. But this is not an issue that's on the top of his agenda at this moment in time.
And it
but
never
with this
will be.
And many other issues, people are going to look back and say, where's the action? If Donald Trump were to run for president today, he still wouldn't have to submit his taxes. And we haven't seen his last ones. Dave Leventhal, thank you.
And you never will. So, your takeaway from that little video part.
I mean, I always just I'm maybe very cynical, but I'm like, he's not saying anything about it. That's a little sus to me. But again, maybe that's just my over cynicism, but I don't, and again, he's like, yeah, it's excuses. It's like, yes, there's a lot of reasons why this isn't at the forefront of the American consciousness necessarily right now. I mean, right now, like the things that are up at the forefront are going to be like gun violence and
of course Roe v. Wade
and
other issues.
all, yeah, those kinds of things are definitely going to be super up there, but it's the insidious things like this that really are just like constantly there. They're not going away. They're constantly eating at the foundations of everything. And like, if you aren't nipping this kind of bad behavior in the bud. It just makes it so much easier to keep doing bad, essentially. Like, to keep hurting people and taking their stuff. There's like a song, it's like, it goes, stealing is so much easier when you've already got plenty of gold. And it's just so much easier to continually knock people down if you're constantly making money. And this is a way that they're making money. So, like, it's just going to be like the people in power stay in power. And it's forever and always. And it's very frustrating.
And nothing fundamentally changes. So I want to pull up something that's pretty hilarious. So there's an article here from, again, Business Insider. And it's a letter that a bunch of advocate groups sent to Joe Biden to remind him, hey, you got to do something to stop Congress from doing all this insider trading. President Biden, you promised the American people that you would advocate for them by pushing Congress to free itself from being influenced by their personal financial holdings. Supporting the effort to end the inherent conflict of interest stock trading presents would allow you to fulfill your promise and advance an important bipartisan priority. Signatories include, again, Campaign Legal Center, Center for American Progress, Citizens for Responsibility, and Essex in Washington. A few other groups there too. But look, here's the takeaway. Biden isn't going to do anything about insider trading. He never will. Because, again, when you look at Congress as a whole, Biden has a career serving in the U.S. Senate. And again, I can go into detail on how he's been on the wrong side of history, how he was influential in writing the crime bill, how he was influential in supporting the credit card corporations to make the also wonderful student debt what it is today. That's Joe Biden. The same Joe Biden who gave a eulogy to Strom Thurmond and worked really closely with Republican segregationists who were against busing and desegregation. But again, 20 members of Congress in this article here personally invest in top weapons contractors that will profit from the just passed $40 billion Ukraine aid package. So, remember that $40 billion? Well, there's going to be 20 federal lawmakers or their spouses that hold stock in Raytheon Technologies and Lockheed Martin, which manufactures weapons Western allies are sending to the Ukraine to fight Russian invaders, according to an insider analysis of federal financial records. The stock holdings by members of Congress come as Congress on Thursday approved $40 billion in defense and other aid to Ukraine. Both companies' stock, especially that of Lockheed Martin, have risen since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th. Looking at this again further, the joint Raytheon Lockheed Martin made Javelin missile as touted as the world's premier shoulder-fired anti-armor system capable of destroying battle tanks. Raytheon Stinger missiles are designed to shoot down helicopters and other low-flying aircraft. Raytheon advertises the Stinger as rapidly deployed by ground troops and credited with more than 270 fixed and rotary wing intercepts. So among those invested in defense contractors is Republican Representative John Rutherford from Florida, who purchased between $1,001 to $15,000 worth of Raytheon stock on February 24th. Rutherford sits on the House Appropriations Committee that's in charge of federal government spending. So know this, folks. We don't have money for schools. We don't have money for infrastructure. We have no money for UBI. We don't have anything to set up a Federal Jobs Guarantee Act. We have no money for student debt forgiveness, medical debt forgiveness, Medicare for all. But hey, God damn it, we could get that money. How are we going to pay for this? When it comes down to weapons, don't ask questions. When it comes down to social programs, stop asking questions.
I didn't ask a question.
That's right. That's what Congress always says. Stop asking questions. So there you go. So, Lauren, final notes for this story.
I mean, I'm totally shocked that, you know, the money was able to scrounge up for $40 million to go to Ukraine. And of course, we're going to have the people in power profiting off of that money. Like, of course, shocking. I'm shooketh.
Yes, and so what I have to say is, it's not only Republican lawmakers that are doing this. It's Democratic lawmakers serving in the United States House and Senate. See, it's one big club, and you ain't in it.
Well, if it was only the Republicans, then things would have been able to have changed. But like it, you know, but it's not, because it's not changing and it won't change. Like, that's proof right there. I think that it is it is bipartisan.
We do have bipartisanship for war. Bipartisanship for war and also investing in stocks. So whenever you see the little song and dance show of Democratic and Republican lawmakers yelling at each other, debating each other, know this. After the cameras are turned off, they go inside their private rooms and they're laughing at you because they know that the American people won't say anything. The reason why things are the way they are is because of our silent, obedient consent. Don't vote Republican. Don't vote Democrat. Do something more valuable with your time. Help build activist groups and organizations and mutual aid groups that can actually help out your communities. Don't attach anything that you build to Washington, D.C. Support independent candidates, third parties, and if you live in a ballot initiative state, support good ballot initiatives and be sure to vote against the bad ballot initiatives that, let's face it, because there are bad ballot initiatives out there. But this is how we do things. And we could yell at these Democrats all we want. We could yell at Biden and be like, why aren't you doing more? Biden built this system. You really think he's going to do anything different? You think Nancy, Ice Cream Nancy, you know what Nancy Pelosi's telling you to do right now? Just calm down and eat ice cream. That's all. So she's on board. And hell, her husband got slapped with a DUI, right? But the officers didn't do anything. They didn't give him a breathalyzer test until like 4 hours later. So see, double standards. We have a neoliberal system. They don't like us. With that being said, we're going to move on now to our next story. Before we do, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that ring bell notification. That way you know when Harlan's Media goes live. And again, be sure to subscribe to our other platforms as well. Chicago Corner will be live tonight at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again, Chicago Corner. But now, with that being said, Lauren, you got a story for the people. What is going on?
Well, May was Mental Health Awareness Month. Right. I don't know if many people knew that. It wasn't widely advertised, but May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So the thing that people tend to have trouble with is differentiating between mental illness and mental health, because everybody in the world has mental health because we all have functioning human brains. Right. So when people talk about mental health, they're talking about the overall wellness of an individual. When you talk about mental illness, you're talking about the things within an individual that can prevent quality of life. But it's not just things like schizophrenia or depression or like Tourette's. Those are all aspects. Those are all mental illnesses, sure. But you can also have things, like anxiety or ADHD, things of that nature that are a lot more common, but also can affect quality of life. So May is supposed to be a point in time where we talk about mental health and mental illness in a way that is less stigmatized than we tend to think of it. So I do have a graph that I found very interesting that sort of illustrates a little bit about where our numbers are, because they're kind of high. About 1 in 5 Americans live with mental health issues. So that's just what's reported. So the graph in front of here is about like what is reported, what do we know? So women tend to have report more problems than men do. People of color report fewer problems than white people do. Barely, but fewer. The problem there tends to be more the people of color have much more difficulty getting the assistance that they need, and we'll go into that a little bit later too. So that was just it talks about how there's, people of mixed race are more likely to have a problem. The numbers are way higher than I expected when I went into that, like 20% of people. And that's just adults.
Let's keep it on that graph there for a second so our viewing audience can see it too. And by the way, you could find all the show notes to this in the description box below. And when this video is clipped, just check it out. It's still up on our live stream. That's where you'll see the links.
Yes. So we also have, especially right now, more adolescents than ever before are reporting mental issues with like anxiety and depression. ADHD is another one that's on the rise. So it's like you've got people who report 27% of Gen Z has reported and sought help. You've got 15% of millennials, 13% of Gen X. So it kind of goes down pretty rapidly. The people who've gotten treatment, 37% of Gen Z have managed to seek treatment, 35% of millennials, 26% of Gen X. And then there wasn't really too much information about how many people from the boomers generation have reported help, but 22% of people from the boomer generation and older people are seeking help. So it is something that is happening. And the problem does tend to be with just, how people were raised. It's like one of the main issues tends to be the pick yourself up by your bootstraps and just get on with your life.
Yeah, and don't be viewed or have the stigma of something. Because again, things were different in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and it's something that follows people, and it's been ingrained in our culture a lot.
Yeah, and that's the reason too why you have Gen Z tends to have people who are more willing to ask for help. They've been raised by people as that thing has gone down. So it's most of us. I was raised by my mom was a boomer, barely, but she was raised in that sort of mentality of you have to pick yourself up with your bootstraps. If you had depression, I wouldn't do anything about it. You just have to get over it. It's like, just get over this hump and it's fine. And a lot of people who I knew were raised with that sort of mentality. Just get over it. Which obviously doesn't help people with actual problems. But again, it's the system in which older generations were raised, and then that trickles down to younger generations. Gen Z is being raised by Gen X and millennials. Yeah. And again, as the numbers show, they're more likely to ask for help and recognize when they need it. And it's showing with these Gen Z kids. So it's a question of, is it actually worse? Mm-hmm. Or are more people just saying, I need help?
I think really, because I know there's a lot we need to cover for the story. My thoughts on this is that it's not getting worse. It's just, you had a nice covering, a nice mask covering up something that's rotten, that's messed up. It's like putting, I think a nice painting over a gaping hole in a wall. Even though the wall is leaking and there's termites there, the painting right there is covering up, but it's going to fall apart and wither away. I think society, especially before the Gen X came into existence, it was suppressed and was told to stay suppressed. But if you look at the environment, education, current stuff that we're in now, this is all fueling into it. So I don't think it's getting worse. I think it's always been there. And now you have all these additional factors contributing to the shining light on, hey, something's wrong here. Something's wrong here. Here's a light, shining a light on it, So there you go.
People are less willing to be suppressed. And I think that's a good thing. I think you have to air out that wound. Yeah. So one of the things that I did find was that people of color, Black, Indigenous people of color, are less likely, at least, to have reported having a mental illness. They're less likely to have been treated for one. But again, a lot of that can stem from this is the numbers that have been reported, not what is actually true. And there's a lot of reasons why someone in that community might not have gotten any diagnosis or treatment. A lot of that is a lack of insurance. There's, in certain cases, a higher stigma against it. There's a lack of diversity in doctors. If you don't feel comfortable going to a doctor, which makes perfect sense. To this day, a lot of doctors still think that Black people do not feel pain the same as white people do.
What?
But yeah, there used to be like
I'm not a doctor. I know that's
right.
Yes.
It's absolute nonsense. But if that is the situation you found yourself in your entire life, why would you go to a doctor about this other incident? Of course you're not going to. And so again, these numbers you have to take them with a grain of salt, because so many times people just aren't being able to, they're not reporting it, they're not asking for help because they can't, or they feel like they can't. There's prohibitive costs and prohibitive care. And then one thing that they did find was that 2.5 million youth have some form of severe depression, with multiracial people being at the greatest risk. Then 60% of those people don't get any treatment. 60% at all. In Texas, 3/4 of the people don't get any treatment, in that sense. So it's incredibly bad in Texas. Fewer than 33% of youth get any kind of consistent care, and that's across the board. That's even at places that they do try. The problem also tends to be that you get white kids get picked up, and it turns out they've got they've got ADHD, or they got an anxiety, or they got depression. They have something, and then they get help. But if a Black or Indigenous person gets picked up, they might have all of the same earmarks for that same illness, but they just get chucked into juvie. And then, of course, you've got a self-perpetuating cycle. If you're stuck in juvie from the time you're 13 and in and out, and you're constantly in the system, you're not you can't escape. That's so difficult to escape that. So, and that is again another reason why that's prison system. That's getting into prison system, which we don't have to. But a lot of the people in juvie, in prison, suffer from some kind of mental illness, and most of those started when they were kids. So again, and one of the things that, and again, people talk about mental illness with such a stigma, and they don't think about how common a lot of mental illnesses are. Again, ADHD is a very, very common mental illness, but it is critically underdiagnosed in women specifically. So again, most people think of ADHD as, little boy in class, constantly up out of his seat, running around, shouting. You think of behavioral problems. And so it almost never gets diagnosed in women. As time has gone on, more and more people are getting diagnosed as adults. But as a kid, women are not getting diagnosed. They're getting completely passed over. They just they're not being flagged for it. And part of that is because the symptoms tend to manifest differently in women. So in boys, it's external. And in women, it tends to be more internal. So women, girls they're less destructive, but they're more zoned out. So it will be, there's fidgeting. Girls with ADHD they might tend to later in life will overspend. Things just in one ear and out the others is something that my mom used to say to me all the time. And again, it's, girls, they'll fiddle with their hair. There's a lot of more twitching, fidgeting, but again, part of it is societal. Girls from an early age are told, sit still, be contained, be polite. And so even when they go into a setting, like school, where, they might be zoned out or doodling or just somewhere else in their brain, but they're not going to be loud about it. They're not, it's more likely for them to just be just quiet and zoned out in their own little world, their own little fantasy world. And again, most of the studies and stuff were done on boys. For a long time, girls were not included in studies on ADHD at all. So no one was finding out where those differences were. So we have also a Twitter thread that I brought up, and there's in the links below, there is a more accredited version of what this Twitter thread is going to show, but it's very difficult to read block text if you're me. So here's this lovely Twitter thread about why so many girls are not diagnosed properly with ADHD. We can continue to scroll because my link has disappeared. So firstly, you can get it. Okay, yeah.
Firstly, while it's true that ADHD affects both genders equally, girls are way more likely to go undiagnosed for longer than boys, too. So there we go, continuing on. This is because the presentation of ADHD is vastly different between sexes, but historically ADHD research was done almost entirely on boys. Continuing on. As such, ADHD symptoms, commonly seen in boys, but not in girls, were seen to be a gold standard for diagnosing the condition. Continuing on. Boys are more likely to be affected by hyperactive ADHD, characterized primarily by excitable behavior. Class disruption is common. Continuing on, girls, by contrast, more typically present inattentive ADHD, defined by poor concentration and daydreaming rather than hyperactivity. Continuing on, due to lingering sexist perceptions of inattentive women, these symptoms are frequently overlooked. Girls are passed off as dim. But that's not all. Even girls with hyperactive ADHD are thought to have different symptoms to boys, which are going unnoticed. Whilst hyperactive boys will often physically manifest excess energy, girls will exhibit incessant verbal activity. They're chatterboxes. That's what it's saying on Twitter. All right. Furthermore, hyperactive girls are more vulnerable to emotional vitality than boys are. Remember, the stereotype girls are hysterical.
Well, and for a long time too, that was a thing with women. If you had any kind of, if you had emotions essentially that were even just a little bit beyond the public norm, they would diagnose you with hysteria. Like that was a real thing you could get diagnosed with. Hysteria. You would go to a doctor and they would say, you have hysteria. You're hysterical. And like you could go to actual like sanatoriums for it, and like they would like give you medicine, and occasionally there was some interesting things that doctors would do to cure a woman of hysteria.
I think we all know that's going to probably get very grimdark.
It's not. It's less grimdark and more okay.
Okay. Well,
They'd bring them off to cure hysteria. Anyway.
There you go.
So,
and then, of course, you got emotional, volatile ADHD girls are more likely to also have comorbid anxiety, depression. These get picked up. ADHD doesn't. Anyways, thanks for attending my TED Talk about how misogynistic stereotypes prevent swathes of girls from getting ADHD treatment. Bye.
Yeah. So that's the majority of that thread. Essentially, there really isn't a difference in the amount of people, boys or girls, who have ADHD, but it's just manifests a little bit differently, and it's not that difficult to parse if you know what you're looking for, but everyone thinks they know what ADHD looks like, and so they do not parse it. But I can tell you, as someone who was diagnosed with ADHD last year, it explains a lot about my whole life. And if I had the opportunity to be diagnosed earlier than now, I don't know if things would have been different, if like where my focus would have been different. I am not sure, but it definitely would have. It changed a lot.
I would say there would probably might be things that are different, because I think that there's a lot of people. I'm looking in the live stream chat how people are talking about how they know people or they themselves are dealing with ADHD, or how it wasn't diagnosed for them until much later. So the answer is, you're not alone, and neither is our audience members. And I think it's very important that we have this conversation. But I know there's a little bit more we have to continue on the story, but I just want to point out, look, why don't we thank the one person that kind of helped contribute to this system that we're in, because he was very important, I guess. I don't want to say important, but he was very active in shutting down the talks about mental health treatment, and that's Ronald Reagan.
Oh, he keeps coming back, don't he?
Yeah, good old Ronnie boy, the actor, the one that Republicans view as their God Emperor, or politicians, Republican politicians view him as their God Emperor. But nonetheless, Ronnie Boy Reagan. And of course, I want to bring it home to the wonderful city right behind me, where we can thank that jagoff, I forgot about that, Rahm Emanuel, who shut down half of the mental health facilities here in the city of Chicago. Mm-hmm. Lori Lightfoot, you haven't done anything about that too, you bastard. So there you go. Let's continue on.
So with the rise of people being more willing to talk about it, and also like to try and get treatment, and treatment can be so expensive. So there's been a lot of different online health clinics that have opened up recently. So one of them is called Cerebral. It seems to be one of the more popular ones. Now there's pros and cons to all of these online health clinics, essentially. So like with Cerebral, we can scroll down a little bit to see some of the pros and cons of it. So some of it is good. It's like it's an all-inclusive thing. They will take almost everybody. They'll have psychiatrists and therapists and people who can prescribe medication. Like they kind of have everybody in that can help you. They tend to be a lot cheaper than going to a actual place. And there's, you can do it from your home instead of from, I don't have to go anywhere. Now, of course, there's questions as well. It's how deep can they actually get? If you don't have certain insurances, they won't necessarily take you. If you don't live in certain areas, they're not able to take you. I'm not here to promote Cerebral or any of the other clinics. Some of them, like, they require you to pay them up front. And it's like, that's always a red flag. That's always a red flag.
That's a red flag right there.
So it's like the reason I bring it up is mostly because it does work for some people. But it is one of those things. Any of these online therapies and therapist sessions, like, just be very, very careful because they draw you in with like, oh, you can get, treatment cheap, and maybe it does work. Like, it works for some people, but you just have to, I would say, do your research and see if you think that it would be right for you, if you think that direction is the way that you want to go. And then, like, last but not least, again, we said that there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. Everybody has mental health. So there are things that everybody, regardless of where you're at currently in your journey or if you have a mental illness or not, you can still make your mental health better. So there are a lot of things you can do for that. So again, like it wasn't there briefly, but what you can do is, again, you can make sure you're resting. You can make sure you're going outside and, like, spending time with your friends, making sure that you do have time yourself. So people say, I need a mental health day. You probably do need that mental health day. Try to get some exercise, even if it's just walking around, the neighborhood. If you can't, like, there are things that everybody can do to improve upon their mental health. And it's not going to solve your depression, but it can at least there are things you can do to put yourself in a better state than you were 15 minutes ago. And sometimes that's all you can ask for. And I think that that's important.
I agree with that 100%. All right. We're going to move on now to our next story. Before we do, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that ring bell notification. Oh, by the way, we got something here on Rockfin. Let's go and acknowledge that one. Roger Meadows, tip $2. Reason why you got to be 18 to watch that corporate news show is because what they show and talk about is obscene. Here's a simple law. No enhancement of wealth or outside income while serving. A divestment of wealth before taking office extended to staff, justices, judges, civic servants, spouses, siblings, parents, grandparents, and children. This would disincentivize Bloomberg's and Schultz from running. Roger Meadows also tipped $2. Yes, Kit. They think we have high thresholds of pain. What you said about more people are admitting they have a problem. Not that they were increasing, but were always there. It gives the illusion that it's increasing, like MTG thinking there's been an increase in more people becoming gay and will be extinct. Yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene said that straight people will be extinct.
He said I left out the black people have a good reason for not trusting medical institutions. I thought I said that.
Black women's bodies were used to advance medicine against their will, to advance science and biology. Yeah. Reason why they thought we were perfect specimens is because they could tell investors, onlookers, don't worry, we are not hurting them because they don't feel pain. You can thank black women for modern gynecology. Experiments were so bad they got rid of the separation between. Oh my goodness. between their anus and vagina. They said, don't worry, they feel no pain.
Yeah, so again, and still to this day, like I said, doctors will often think, not all of them, I guess, but like enough doctors that it makes perfect sense to me why a black woman or like a person of color, why they would not want to go to the doctor. I wouldn't trust them either. Like, yeah, good point, Roger.
Look. To quote Carl Sagan, we are all one species. We're all one people. Human beings are one. That's all I always want to say there, okay? Boy, oh boy, we live in a crazy timeline, don't we? All right, now, speaking of fun, we're going to have some fun. I promise for today's show we're going to have fun. That's right, we're talking about Majority Report, Nomiki Konst, and the big fight for the Senate district, the 57th Senate district in the state of New York. So what is going on? Well, it turns out Majority Report had some big news a while back saying their good friend and contributor to the show, Nomiki Konst, NATO Nomiki. You know, her. Remember her? Well, you know, she's running in a race where there's already a progressive candidate. Now, I know a lot of you are burnt out by electoral politics. I find this hilarious because Aaron Mate and Max Blumenthal call out Nomiki Konst for doing this because she's basically, I said basically. Right? I got to stop saying that word. What she's doing is splitting the vote because there's already a leftist who's endorsed by Workers' Family Party. I know a lot of you are burnt out by them. Already endorsed by DSA. I know a lot of you burnt out by DSA. And this other candidate, and we'll tell you who this candidate is, also endorsed by AOC. Now, I have no idea why Nomiki is getting involved in this because apparently the opponent, the corporatist opponent, is a friend we all know named Crowley. Remember that guy? Yeah, that guy. He's back. And Nomiki, you know, is entering into that race. But there's some people calling out Majority Report like, hey, why are you promoting this? You're splitting the left vote. You're causing division. You're causing division. We can't have division in here. We just can't have it. It just won't work. Here, let's play this first video.
Emma's Cashews writes in, hey, Majority crew, I like Nomi and think she'd be a great senator, but are you worried about the chance she splits the left vote with Kristen Gonzalez and Crowley gets elected? Gonzalez already got endorsed by AOC, DSA, and the Working Families Party, so why should I support a candidate when the rest of the institutional left is backing another leftist poggers? It's a great point. It's a great point. Look, yesterday, I did not know that Nomi was running in a district with Kristen Gonzalez and this
New York's your
who's backed by
backyard.
DSA,
You should know
it.
You should know.
That's
inexcusable.
Historically large number of DSA endorsed candidates in the upcoming elections here in New York. I wish I had known that, frankly. You know, Nomiki's a friend of the show, and she's gonna, you know, it's her choice to run. But I really don't have an answer for how that, because
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of those messages too. I didn't anticipate that conflict, and perhaps I should have. I haven't looked closely at the candidates yet,
Right.
other than to know that they exist. And
frankly, I was a little confused because the districts had just been redrawn, so it was hard to keep track for me.
Yeah.
But
look, this is nothing personal to know me. It's that I support DSA candidates. This is true if DSA put in somebody against my buddy Chris running in Dallas. He didn't run as a DSA candidate. I would have supported DSA over him because of that ideological reason. And I think, like, look, I think there's certain folks who say, like, this is democracy and, you know, win. And I kind of, in a vacuum, can relate to that and, like, see the best candidate win. But, you know, you do have that Crowley vote split issue, and you do have the entire rest of the left lining up behind Kristen Gonzalez, who I think looks like a really good candidate and who I'm probably going to donate to. So, yeah, it's we've heard the criticisms. And
very valid. Very valid, frankly.
And I think that's like the challenge probably for Nomiki's campaign is how do you, like, that's a huge concern.
So, okay, all fair points. Now, look, you know, sometimes I've occasionally on the show, you know, punched that Majority Report, but all right, at least they're acknowledging, you know, comments from their audience, right? And that was a clip that Aaron Mate managed to clip out, post on his Twitter page. If you're not following Aaron Mate, please do so. He's an award-winning journalist who's done phenomenal investigative work. But also, the thing is, there was an interesting point in that video, Lauren, that was brought up about Nomiki's campaign. Not only will she have to be addressing the fact that she is entering into a race where she could be potentially splitting the left and their vote. Again, as you brought up, the left likes to do that splitting up and infighting. Yeah, true. Yeah, they do. However, let's go back in time for a little bit. Let's bring up this tweet from Max Blumenthal because love that graphic. Love it. Love it. Max Blumenthal brings us up. Proud to have played a role in bringing Bro Neo Kana and NATO Nomiki together to fight for progressive causes. So again, Ro Kana in the bottom tweet is saying that he's endorsing her and backing her up in that race. Hey, Ro Kana, how come you're not supporting, the progressive that's already there? So here, I want to bring up something that's a blast from the past because Nomiki, at one point, and this is her being pro-censorship, at what point is Congress going to look into these paid propagandists here to disrupt the left and push fascist conspiracies? Some of the funding has shown up on tax returns being funneled through journalism awards by Assadis. So she's talking about Aaron Mate, Max Blumenthal, The Gray Zone, Mint Press News, Jimmy Dore, and other independent media networks. She's tweeting out to Congress, hey, put more censorship in, which is not cash money. These guys are toxic and spreading disinfo. Ro Kana, again on the bottom tweet, the far left's refusal to condemn the immoral and illegal Putin invasion is appalling. It is nihilistic relativism. I stand by my words in this exchange and reject Max Blumenthal and RT talking points where he's a contributor. I have human rights progressive approach to FP, to Max Blumenthal. So there we go. So the thing is, you got Ro Kana there endorsing Nomiki, but also Nomiki calling for Congress to put in more censorship towards independent media. Now, again, I want to point out the Gray Zone, Mint Press News, Aaron Mate, Glenn Greenwald, Max Blumenthal have done phenomenal work. They've broken award-winning stories. Their record speaks for itself. And again, that's something that Nomiki's campaign is going to have to deal with. Plus, hey, who is this other candidate? I just want to pull up her campaign page. Her name's Kristen Gonzalez. She's running for state senate. She already has a lot of progressive groups endorsing her. What's the incentive for Nomiki getting into this race already? I mean, Kristen has backing up already. Yeah. So it's kind of, I don't want to say that's settled, but with Nomiki entering the race, it's very counterintuitive.
I mean, again, it does seem like the only thing that's going to happen is taking away votes from the person who's already got the support, which doesn't seem great for either one of them.
No, it doesn't. Now, there's another twist, because we're going to time travel again. We're going to go back in time. So I have this article from Politico. It is a little bit spicy, but also something that Nomiki's campaign will have to deal with. Now, this article came out in May 1st of 2019 from Politico. With taxpayer dollars flowing in, Khan's public advocate campaign accused of fraud. What is going on? So, it was 2 months into his work on Nomiki Khan's campaign for New York City public advocate that her accomplice aide, Jason Conliani, there we go, Conliani, said he began to suspect something was wary. So on February 21st, hey, I like that day, February 21st, just 5 days before the election, the campaign received its trace of public matching funds, a roughly $500,000 payment that matched each dollar Khan's raised from small local donors at the city's 8-to-1 rate. The very next day, an invoice arrived at the Khan's campaign office for nearly $90,000 worth of canvassing and field operations from a Louisiana firm called Deep South Political Consulting, Conliani said. By Conliani's account, the invoice shocked Dominique Chouvena, Khan's official campaign manager. For one, the campaign was already amassing an internal canvassing team. Why hire another? Further, the decision to hire Deep South Political Consulting hadn't been run past Shivanova, he said, and Conliani, who recently gone through the city's campaign finance board training, said the invoice itself was bizarre, asking for payment for services that hadn't been rendered and in one lump sum. In the days that followed, Conliani says he increasingly began to suspect something was amiss, eventually prompting him to file a complaint in April with the city's campaign finance authorities alleging massive fraud by the campaign and Ms. Kantz. So continuing on, in his formal complaint, Conliani says he suspects the campaign used public matching funds to funnel money to Kantz off the books and de facto campaign manager, a man named Lonnie Paris. It's a funny name right there. There you go. Lonnie Paris.
Lonnie Poe.
2 days after Conliani filed his complaint, Kantz issued a public statement accusing Conliani of being a sexual predator who used his position in the campaign to harass her, an accusation he emphatically denies. A lot of little twists and turns that are happening here. The public advocate is an elected office with few enumerated powers, but an outsized megaphone. The public advocate is supposed to act as a check on other city politicians and keep them honest on behalf of taxpayers. That's funny, keeping other politicians honest.
We got jokes.
It's a serious position. So there we go. It is also often launching a pad for higher office. So there we go. Kantz was one of more than a dozen candidates who sought the office. Conliani's allegations, if proven true, would represent a serious black eye for both her campaign and the city's generous public matching fund system for any candidate running for municipal office, which advocates argue is key to getting more people involved in city politics. The system became significantly more lucrative for candidates when city voters approved in November 2018 a ballot measure that expanded the taxpayers' match for every small dollar donation from 6 to 1 to 8 to 1. In the public's advocates' race and office with only $4 million budget, taxpayers shelled out roughly $7 million in public campaign financing. The allegations from within Kant's campaign raised questions about whether she obeyed campaign finance laws and raised a larger issue of whether those laws are sufficient to protect the millions of public dollars going to campaigns. The board does not comment on inquiries regarding complaints, campaign finance board spokesperson Matt Soller said. So a red effing flag. On February 22nd, the day that the Deep South invoice came in, a newly suspicious Conliani decided to hit record on his cell phone. In the recording that he would later share with Politico, a voice identified as Shuvanova's can be heard expressing concern about the invoice. She says Paris, the consultant, had considered Kant's actual campaign manager, who is not listed in any official campaign paperwork, was insisting the payment was legitimate. He was obviously very stressed when you said it's a red flag, Shuvanova whispers on the tape to Conliani, and he tried to make it your fault. He tried to make it my fault, which is in itself a red effing flag, Conliani said on tape. I was like, if we're going to spend $100,000 on anything, I have to understand what it is. I have to know that if it's real, Shuvanova said on the tape. I have to make sure that things are done in a complaint way. The meaningless snippet of recording is anecdotal and misleading, Shuvanova later told Politico, but did not deny it was her voice on the recording. In New York, it's legal to record an in-person or telephone conversation as long as one party of the conversation consents.
Is that one party, the person doing the recording?
Yeah.
That's
So,
good. Okay.
Again, there's a little bit more into the article too, but look, when it comes down to this campaign for New York State, folks, there's a lot that Nomiki's campaign will have to answer for, especially from what happened not only in 2019, but also her previous comments on Twitter, where she's calling for more censorship on journalists like Aaron Mate, Max Blumenthal, Glenn Greenwald, calling for censorship on Jimmy Dore, calling for censorship on other independent media networks. That's not cash money if you're running as a progressive. There we go. Lauren, your thoughts.
Yes, it's really not cash money if you're looking for progressives, but it also seems that she doesn't have a problem making cash money where cash money don't exist. So
there we go. All right. Well, hopefully, maybe we'll learn a little bit more into this story. We'll find out a little bit more of what is going on. So there we go. Just thought we'd share with all of you lovely people. And again, I find this story to be a little bit spicy, but, there we go. All right. We're going to move on now to our next story. Before we do, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that ring bell notification. Again, Chicago Corner will be live tonight at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you're not subscribed to Chicago Corner, how are you going to know about the wonderful city that's right behind myself and Lauren? See, look, there's Sears Tower. There's There's 360 Tower, which is really the John Hancock building, but doesn't go by that name anymore, which I think it's stupid. They call it 360 Tower now.
I can't keep up with all the
name
changes.
Look. No debate. That's a Sears Tower. That thing's a Sears Tower, and there is the John Hancock building. Okay, all right. We're not changing it anymore. Y'all, none of you saw me mispoint at the building. Anyways, you got a story for people. You got a story for people. What is going on?
Well, if May was Mental Health Awareness Month, June is Pride Month.
Oh, you know what that means?
Oh, I certainly do. It means we're about to see a lot of corporations with rainbow flags on everything.
Yay.
We're inclusive.
Pandering.
So there's lots and lots of memes about this right now. So this is one that I wanted to bring up just because I find it amusing to my millennial standpoint. So what inspired you to change your logo to the rainbow flag? Money! It's obviously the answer to that is money. And I adore that it's Mr. Krabs representing all sorts of corporations. So, most people I think know where Pride Month came from. It started after a year officially. It started the year after the Stonewall riots in 1969. So in 1969, the police raided a popular gay bar in New York City on Christopher Street. And then people were they responded. They were tired of being, abused and put down and just mistreated. So the riots went on for almost a week. And the year after that, they had their first official march. So in the first official march was in 1970 to commemorate what had happened at Stonewall. And, of course, throughout history, the march has changed, and it's sort of become less of a remembrance of trying to rise up against an oppressive force and become a corporate sellout. So
it's literally a shell of what it used to be.
It really is. It started, and again, this is yet another situation where Black people have been, and Black Indigenous people of color, everybody has been shunted from the main standpoint of where they should be standing. We should be remembering Marsha P. Johnson a little bit better. We should, there's. And Sylvia Rivera, these are the people who, were boots on the ground. They've been instrumental in getting this whole movement started. But, Sylvia Rivera was Latina and Marsha P. Johnson was Black, and both of them were trans, and we don't talk about them as much as we should. And again, it's coming where people are talking about them more than they used to. But these are the people who really instigated a huge movement. And just because if Marsha wasn't at Stonewall on the first day, she was still so instrumental in bringing awareness. And they started STAR, and they started all of these amazing organizations in order to help people. And as time has gone on, and the favor has sort of turned, as things have turned into the favor of the LGBT community, kind of, it's becoming popular to side with that community. And corporations are all jumping on board to support that community for one whole month out of the year. But
it's all for money.
It's all for money. And interestingly, well, because they want to make they're like, oh, people like it. They'll come and buy our stuff if we have rainbows on some of it. But interestingly, and I find this to be screaming hypocrisy. So many of these companies that provide that put their little logos up, they provide funding to anti-LGBT lawmakers. So if we can bring up this one graph, and this graph is interesting, and there should be again a link to it below. You can click on each and every one of those red bars, and it will tell you exactly to whom these companies have given money. So Toyota, you saw, like, has given lots and lots of money to a lot of people. One of the people that they've given money to is Greg Abbott. Like, Greg Abbott, who recently tried to say that if a parent is allowing any kind of gender-affirming therapy or research into if their kid is trans and they are not calling them by the name or sex of their birth, then they are guilty of child abuse. Like, he wants, like, that Greg Abbott has been given money. It's, again, like I said, it's screaming hypocrisy. All of these companies have donated to senators and lawmakers and politicians with highly anti-LGBT rhetoric.
Now, I want to tell our audience now, because you're watching this live, you could find the show notes. It's in the description box below. There you can find all our links. But you could let's keep this image up here. But you could share this link. You can go in the show notes. You can open this link that we have. This is story number 4. So please check it out. Now, we are going to clip this video, and it will be available on Monday. So to anyone that will be watching this on Monday, this is the clip version. You can check out, again, the show notes to this article in our live stream show. So check it out. That way you can find it and see this information, because we want to share this information with all you people. And so that way you know what's happening here. Because look, we got Toyota, you got AT&T, you got State Farm,
Amazon,
Amazon, Jeff Bezos, you're in here too.
Of course he is.
Jeffy, you bald limp mother effer. What are you doing here? Well, he's no longer in charge of Amazon, to be clear, is he?
Hi.
Yeah, it's whatever. He's trying to send this rocket into space and he can't get it up. So there you go.
So it's, again, and people as time has gone on and as this has gotten worse, as corporations more and more have started trying to rebrand themselves 1 month out of the year as being incredibly inclusive, people have been starting to call them out on it. A lot of people in the LGBTQ community they're less thrilled about the rainbow washing that has been going on. Like, according to a lot of several reports, that you see a straight person, like a heteronormative people, are like, yeah, it's great, woohoo, and then you get LGBTQ people, and they're like, well, you know, it's not great.
As someone who's straight, I see this, and when I see the flags, like on Instagram or Facebook or any of these other corporations, be they tech giants or regular industry or any kind of retail outlet, when you see those rainbows, I'm like, oh, you're pandering.
It's just a little bit of
you're pandering. A lot of people,
unless it's there all year round, unless they keep the merch, unless they keep the flag, unless it's there constantly. It's like, and again, and some people from and again, according to certain articles, like some people are like, they see it and they're like, they do feel seen, and it does make them feel good and safe, and so like, awesome, more power to you. That's kind of originally, I think, what the intent was to make people feel safe and seen, but it's become more and more about just bringing people in to make money. So everybody has their rainbow merch for Pride Month, and of course the prices on that are jacked way up. You've got some of the proceeds of this are going to go to these LGBTQ charities, and it's like, yeah, maybe some of it will, but not nearly as much as you're making it out to be of that jacked up price, you know. And so again, people have been trying to call out certain corporations for years, Disney, that they're all of their revolutionary. They've had 8 revolutionary first gay characters, 8 of them, and they're always in for like, it's like, and Disney thinks they're doing so great. They keep patting themselves on the back. It's like, oh, we did great. This character's gay. It's like, okay, you had a split-second kiss. If you're maybe in, Star Wars or something, it was a split-second kiss, and it's like, but guess what? They cut it. They cut everything that they do, they cut out like as they do it so they can cut it or tweak it a little bit. In Endgame, they had one of the Russos like had a line in a support group, and he was on a date with a guy, and then for China they changed it to a business dinner. Like every single thing that they do, it's so easily explained, it's so easily clipped out, and there's, it's obvious. It is obvious to all of us at this point that it's pandering. It's just pretending and putting that mask on and pretending that they give a crap about anybody.
And they don't.
They don't. And like, that's the reason that July 1st rolls around and everything is gone.
No, not everything's gone. Then it becomes American fireworks.
Yep, pretty much.
4th of July.
Yep, everything becomes red, white, and blue instead of ROYGB.
Yeah.
Like, you know. So that's like the start of that. And so also companies are only supporting the LGBT community when it suits them. So here's like another fun little side-by-side graphic of Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Cisco, like Lenovo, like Bethesda, all of these. Oh, this is their Twitter handle in America. And then you look over at some of their Twitter handles. Nope, they're not doing anything. So like that's, again, just a little bit more proof that it's not about the LGBTQ community. It is about making money and about showing face and saying, oh, look at what we do. And so there's been several companies who are like, I'm not going to do the rainbow flag thing because, I mean, I feel like my company is inclusive already. We are already doing everything that we can be doing, and we don't need to put a fake face on things. Yeah. And it's like, I can respect that. So it's like these kind of, company, and it's more than just these, of course, and it's more different places, but they are just pretending constantly, just pretending in order to save face. And like Elon Musk tweeted something that he was making fun of companies who do this, but the amount of backlash he got on Twitter of people like being like, Tesla does it, yeah, Elon, you do it too. You can't be like angry.
Yeah, Tesla does it too. Come on, Elon. Come on. I know you can get your rockets into space, but I mean, come on, buddy. Come on. Yeah. Anyways.
And then just there's this a lovely video that PBS did at the end of last year's Pride. So this was 2021, like June 30th or something is when this video aired. So it's just a little video, and it kind of explains in a summation. It's a summation of what we've been talking about.
Nope.
Throughout this past month, LGBTQ communities in the U.S. have been celebrating Pride in cities and states around the country. Corporate America has made itself a part of that, too, by increasingly tapping into Pride Month and trying to showcase its efforts to increase diversity and inclusion. But there are concerns that Pride has lost some of its political focus, and important issues are not being addressed. Lisa Desjardins has our conversation.
Judy, companies not only celebrate the month, but actively market around it as well. There's a term for that, rainbow capitalism. Walmart and Target have Pride-related ads. IKEA has Pride-themed love seats. And Capital One Bank has this feel-good, splashy video. But for many LGBTQ individuals, it's hardly good times. Several states, including Florida, have passed new restrictions, including on transgender athletes. Hate crimes remain too frequent. Murders of trans individuals are at a new high. It's leading to questions about the purpose of Pride Month. Karen Thompson is an author and professor of gender and sexuality studies at the University of Southern California. Some people might think corporations are using pride symbols more, people are putting rainbow symbols on their Twitter feeds, and they'd think that's support. But why would you say is it a concern?
Well, I think we must understand that it's a gesture of support, but gestures of support, nice words, visible images of solidarity aren't always enough. And they're often never enough, actually. And so it's not that people are angry that corporations are showing some effort at making a gesture to LGBT communities, but it's like, what backs it up? What is there behind that gesture? Is there anything substantial and material that will actually help transform the worlds that we are in and make it better for us?
We're having this conversation, you and I, right now, because this is the last day of Pride Month. But what is the trade-off there? We see corporations making a big effort during Pride Month, but does it last all year, or how do you think about that?
Well, there are endless
propaganda.
memes and Twitter accounts devoted to corporations in the month of June, showing an image of a happy LGBT couple or person, and then corporations on July 1st, which reverts back to exactly the same iconography of straight couples and business as usual. And all we hope is for sustained attention and commitment from these corporations, organizations, and anybody who expresses allyship beyond the month of June into perpetuity on our behalf.
You know, some corporations that are doing this say we're raising awareness, and in some cases we're raising money. For example, donating some of the sales that they're bringing in from LGBTQ merchandise to causes that are related. I hear you saying you want something substantial. What do you believe that corporate America should be doing?
I think that many of us in the LGBT community are interested in a larger series of systemic changes, policy changes at every level. And, you know, some money towards maybe a popular cause here and there. Sometimes like marriage equality was a kind of mainstream popular cause for a period of time, isn't enough to address the deeper systemic issues that often perpetuate, the oppression of LGBT peoples, especially of color, those who are unhoused, trans people who have violence committed against them, all of the things that actually many Americans are fighting for around systemic equality, the end of white supremacy, etc. And I think LGBT folks see that they're part of a broader movement, that we need to make deeper changes to our system, to our culture, in order to have a more just world.
We're now seeing more visible presence, more attention on different parts of the LGBT community, the transgender community, non-binary individuals, meaning people who don't identify strictly as male or female. Can you talk about the tension and the communications surrounding those groups and how they see this movement?
I think that we have to consider whether or not certain groups who've attained certain privileges within that LGBT acronym have to maybe consider abdicating some of their agenda in order to incorporate what would benefit the most folks under that LGBTQ plus acronym, and whether or not there's true inclusion, acceptance, and understanding for trans, non-binary folks and others in the community, those especially who don't share the same privileges and wealth, so that we can achieve and attain a truly transformative change from our perspective.
Important conversations that we will keep following. Karen Thompson at the University of Southern California. Thank you.
Again, like it sums it up. And like one of the things that she was talking about was like making an actual steps towards change. And what can you do for real? So for instance, when Gilead, it's a pharmaceutical company. They sponsored New York's Pride not too long ago. They're a pharma company that produces PrEP, which is something that you can take, and it can reduce the risk of HIV by like 90%. Like it's so much less likely that you're going to get HIV if you are on PrEP. And if you've got insurance, and if you've got a coupon from the pharmaceutical company, it's like a little card. It's like, then you can get it for free. But if you don't have insurance, it's over $2,000, like a pop. And again, she was talking about certain parts of the community that have a much more difficult time getting certain getting those perks. About 25% of the people most of the people who can get PrEP are young white men with like good jobs. But then you've got a huge amount of people who cannot get their hands on this potentially life-saving pill that they can't get it because they can't get insurance because of the circumstances in which they grew up. So it's important to make something like that a lot more available. And that's something that could be an actual step that a company could make to show that they actually care 12 months out of the year.
Wow.
Instead of just one.
I would say corporations, you're going to drop the axe at the end of June We know that they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a way to pander and get money. And I think recently, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, but the Marine Corps, an outfit I used to be associated with, I'm going to actually send it to FaZe. I'm going to filibuster here, but I think it's only fair that all of you see this tweet. It's from the Marine Corps, and I'm pulling it up, putting it in the Friday Slack, just so that all of you can see it with yourself. See, the meme has finally become real. The meme is finally reality. And here we go. It's basically the Marine Corps acknowledging Pride Month. And it's hilarious. So here we go. Let's pull it up if we can here. Throughout June, the UCM, the United States Marine Corps, takes pride in recognizing and honoring the contributions of our LGBTQ service members. We remain committed to fostering an environment free from discrimination and defend the values of treating all equally with dignity and respect. Scroll on down. The meme's finally real. Rainbow bullets.
Rainbow bullets.
We did it, folks.
Equal opportunity death strikes.
We did it. The meme is finally real. It's finally real.
Yeah.
There we go. Outstanding work, Lauren. Glad to have you back. All right. We're going to be ending the show and be doing a patron show as well. You're going to find out what Lauren did in Spain on her vacation. That's why she wasn't here. We didn't kick her out like all of you were saying. What's wrong with you? She's back with a vengeance. So there we go. Again, Harlan's Media is live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch. Again, please consider being a patron supporter as well. It will help out our studio. There's a lot that we're going to be working on this summer. Please consider being a patron supporter. Harlan's Media and Chicago Corner need your help. And again, Chicago Corner live tonight, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We got something on Rockfin. Let's acknowledge it here real quick. Roger Meadows tipped $2. This is a generational thing all the way back. Black people go through the same thing when it comes to symbolism. The older generation in our community is cool with symbolism because it says, you see us. This was the fight in the 80s about getting MLK, Martin Luther King Day, as a national holiday. Same thing when you ask how black millennials, how they feel about Obama, different than boomers from our community. This is why Biden Democrats think they did something for us by making Juneteenth a national holiday. Yet young blacks are like, so what? Again, thank you so much for the super chats, Roger Meadows. If you're not following Roger Meadows on Twitter, please do so. He has his finger on the pulse of worker co-ops and all the great work that's happening in New York State. So also, by the way, Dominique tipped $2. If we want to change the policies, we have to change those that make policies. Again, there we go. Again, subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Rockfin, Odyssey, Rumble, and Twitch. I want to give a huge shout out to FaZe, our moderators keeping the peace. Lauren, so glad to have you back on board. My name's Kit. Peace to you guys, and let's all do what we can to build a better future.